You're here, which means that you've found spirit crumbs, leading you to your inner light worker. I will be sharing how these tiny little hints from the universe have led me to where I am today. I hope that by hearing my story and the stories of others, you'll pick up your own spirit crumbs along the way that will lead you to somewhere magical. Thanks for coming along for the journey. Let's see where it takes us.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Spirit Crumbs. I am your host, Andrea McCallum, and I am an artist and an intuitive energy curator. Today's episode will hopefully be a short one because there is an episode coming out on Thursday. I'm really excited about that one. It is the holiday episode with Emily. We decided, since we both share a love of the holiday season and holiday movies, that we would do an episode dedicated exactly to that, since there's just already too much that we try to jam into our monthly cosmic energy reports. So look out for that on Thursday. But I just wanted to share something that came up for me in the last week based on a lot of the themes I've been seeing for people, especially going into Sagittarius season, where we're hopefully having that fire spark, wanting to do things and put ourselves out there. And what I want to talk about is related to the fact that we set intentions, even with spirit, when we want to receive something. Setting the intentions and looking for the spirit crumbs. In this case, because as we talked about in the Sagittarius episode, I've been thinking a lot about, what do I even want to do? Am I on the right track? Do I want to change everything I'm doing? And one of the intentions that I set was for spirit to let me know ways that I could work with plant energies or to give me a direction. Still haven't been making the time that I'd like to for creating art. So I had that in the back of my mind, but as per usual, I set my intention and then just kind of went about my business, moving forward with the things I was already doing. What was coming through very clearly in the last week or so was that I was feeling like there was a chicken and the egg situation, right? It's we think we want to have all of our shit together before we start giving ourselves time to be creative. But then it's maybe if we were creative, we would actually tap into something that could be really abundant. So I was going for a walk to my volunteer position. And on the way there, I was realizing, you know what? I should next week actually bring some stuff to do while I'm there. I've been reading, which is really great because I don't spend a lot of time doing that. But I was I should bring a sketchbook or something and then stay a little bit after. So anyways, on the way home, I was kind of just being aware of my surroundings. I wasn't even really doing much. I was listening to music, not even a podcast. At one point, I was walking and I looked down and somebody had dropped a little kid's toothbrush. It was a yellow handle, the peel of a banana, and then the actual brush part was white to be the fruit of the banana. And I was just oh, that's weird, but also cute. Too bad that ended up on the ground outside. And then I walked maybe 5-10 minutes down the road, and there was a full ripe, bright banana on the sidewalk that had been stepped on and had this perfect quilted pattern of someone's shoe. And at that point, I was okay, that's 2 bananas on my walk. And then I realized that I also had gone to the grocery store intending to buy bananas, but I hadn't. I had forgotten. And part of me, I think, also was I love bananas. I've always eaten them, but half the time I forget about them. And then, as many of us do, they go a little bit brown, we leave them, and then we make banana bread or banana muffins, right? And the last time I bought them, I ended up making muffins, not eating any of them. So there was that in the back of my head too, I think. But I was there must be a message in this. And I just know, I've said before, I know the difference in the energy when I see something and I'm oh, that's a message versus oh, that's just weird, right? So this, I was okay, I know this is a message for me. So I really need to look this up when I get home. Now, my most recent favorite resource for plant energy to look up the uses is this wonderful book called Plant Witchery by Juliet Diaz. she has this beautiful format where it's like the plant, the common name, the like species name. Then she has essential properties, and she'll give like a couple keywords, physical properties of the plant. And then there's medicinal properties, magical properties, and plant wisdom. And it's really great. I didn't even know if banana was going to be in here, but obviously if I'm talking about it, it was. And I was like, whoa, I actually don't think I even paid attention when I first got this book, because I did go through it, the whole thing, when I got it for Christmas last year. I looked it up, and turns out creativity and abundance are the main essential properties. And so she talks about how it's actually a plant that we use almost all parts of it, and all parts can be edible. Actually, something that I found really interesting was that it talked about how there's like very low levels of radioactivity because they have so much potassium, even though it's like not harmful. But when you're thinking about like creativity and abundance, it just has this like radiant energy, right? And if we think of yellow, the solar plexus, that's a very powerful center. And that really resonated when I read that. I was like, okay, yeah, that I could totally see how like there would be like radiating this energy. And then when I was looking at the magical properties, it talks about how you can cook with it and eat the banana as like a way to connect to it. You can add it to other foods, and that you can actually just set your intention as you cook with it or as you eat it in order to tap into the magical properties of it. Fertility is also another thing for obvious reasons. It's a phallic-shaped fruit. What I really loved is that bananas, as she talks about, play a role in many different cultures, which makes sense because it's natural to a lot of places on Earth, but it's not here. And yet we have created this understanding that it's a staple for us. It's not native to Canada, and it's not something that would grow here naturally. There's obviously a lot of relationships involved when something is imported from other areas, but it's something that, because it goes on such a long journey to get here, I feel like I almost like now have more of a sense of duty to like honor the banana when I'm eating it. It talks about here in the book how bananas are about really going after what you want and allowing yourself to experience joy, living your best life. If you're not feeling that way, then working with a banana is a really amazing connection to make right before we're getting to the end of the year. A lot of us are like trying to set intentions, thinking of what we want to do in the year to come. And so this is actually a plant that is encouraging us to daydream and really like allow that to move us forward and to actually go after it, which to me feels very Sagittarius. This was kind of like a permission slip to really turn it around. Instead of thinking, okay, what should I be doing, or what is going to help me meet some financial goals, it was kind of a light switch that went off that was like, what would I do if I didn't have any bills? And so this opened up this whole sense of just being creative and imagining if I just did readings and sessions for people and connected with communities. I haven't quite sat down to really work with it as much as I should have before doing this episode. It just seemed like a good time to really allow ourselves to do these exercises around dreaming big and really tuning into what brings us joy. Now, I did look up a couple of online sources just to see what their focus would be in case there was something that they really leaned into. And what came up with most of them when I was just kind of scrolling was being around fertility, which I think fertility also obviously ties into abundance because it's like bringing something to fruition. So I feel like that still does resonate with me. One of the sites, symbolismandmetaphor.com, leaned heavily into the wealth aspect of like financial growth and abundance to tune into like whether you feel like you need a change in your career or whether you feel like you're on the right path and that's just going to continue to move forward. And when you feel into that, like which one makes more sense to you, which one resonates as truth. It also talks about health and that your body is probably asking to be cared for. And this really resonated with me as well. I told this story on Card Pull Friday, but this particular day that I saw the bananas walking home, I also have been working on receiving, as I think I've mentioned a few times. And I was sitting at the front desk. That's what I do as like a volunteer. I sit at the desk, I direct people where they need to go, kind of welcome everyone in. And there's a commercial kitchen on the top floor, and somebody came down from the kitchen and they were waiting for their partner to like bring a car around to load everything up. I have a pretty good gauge of people's energy, as you might assume. So I'll know if somebody is like a chatty person or somebody wants to be left alone. And this person was pretty quiet. So I said hello, and they just kind of like went over and sat near the window so they could see someone coming. So I just kept reading. And at one point they came over to me and they like brought over a couple boxes, and they were like, hey, I was just wondering if you'd like a baked good or some fruit. And I have a very complicated relationship with food, but I just automatically, because I'm vegan, I always just assume, as per usual, if people have like made food, usually there's eggs or dairy in it. And so my automatic response is just like, oh, thank you so much for offering, but I'm all right for now. Like, I really appreciate you offering that though. She's fine. She's like, okay, no problem. She walks away. And then shortly, like a couple of seconds after that, the person pulled up with a car. So they brought their stuff out. And I realized after they walked in, I was like, I'm so dumb because they said fruit. Obviously, I can eat fruit. And to be honest, literally maybe 5-10 minutes before she came down, I was sitting there like, I'm starving. And I realized I hadn't eaten before I left the house. So after she left, I was like, I should have just said yes. And like talking about how in the other episode we just did on the Cosmic Energy Report, how we have to give other people the opportunity to give because we feel good giving. So we have to offer other people that opportunity. It's 11:11 right now when I'm recording this. And so that was a lesson for me. And it just shows me that like, I'm going to be offered opportunities to receive, and I now need to actually start acting on that if I'm serious about that. And at least I recognized it. So like awareness is a big part of any kind of change that we make. But also seeing the banana that day, seeing two of them, it's a fruit, something I enjoy eating, something I haven't been eating in the last while. And I was like, okay, so my body's asking for this. So I actually did go grocery shopping and I did get bananas. Then when I looked at, I believe it was awakeningstate.com, they focused on positive energy and yellow and being tied to the sun and the solar plexus. And that was one of the first thoughts I had when I started just thinking about it was the color yellow. What does that mean to me? And the fact that they do grow where it's sunny and warm. And so that just kind of infuses meaning. Here, it's kind of the opposite right now where we're adding on layers. But the day that I was walking was also a very sunny day. And I've realized, and more in the last week than ever before this year, I hadn't been walking around much for a long time. And something I'm noticing is that, like, for me, I'm always really warm. And when it's even like 10 degrees Celsius, which is, I guess, like between 50, I would say like around 60 degrees, probably like 55 to 60 degrees at like minimum. And it was a little bit warmer than that with the sun. But like, I'll just be walking in a t-shirt pretty often. And yes, I'm Canadian. So it's just like that is warm for us. But seeing how like people will be wearing like full on winter coats with like a hat, and I'm just like walking in a t-shirt. And then I start to question myself, like, am I losing it? Or like, is this just that people have different responses to temperature, right? And so I started thinking like sometimes positivity, if there's too much, if you think of like heat, if there's too much, it can be uncomfortable. Eventually we can acclimatize to it. And maybe that's something that I'm also learning after the last couple of years and everything that I've gone through. I'm comfortable in the tower energy, like crisis mode. And now it's like, okay, well, can I get used to things being easy? Can I get used to things being, you know, warm and bright and joyful? That's a more difficult energy for me. So that was really interesting. And then it talked about how the banana ties together like positivity and practicality when it comes to our goals. There are a lot of uses, a lot of ways we eat bananas. They have a lot of nutritional properties. And then, of course, tying it with this positivity. And like, again, this comes back to balance, which is, harmony is my word for the year. So that was just super interesting that connection was made within this site. And then they also talked about just in general, like how you can look at a banana and a banana tree and how it's like something that stands strong in its power. It has a thick skin, but is soft inside. So again, this is like finding a balance, right? Like allowing yourself to have boundaries, but not losing your heart. Those are kind of the meanings that I found. And then I was kind of thinking too about just what happens with bananas where like they get some spots and then we're like, I don't want to eat it. But that's where the flavor is. When you look at a recipe to make banana bread, they don't ask you to find like a green, new, fresh banana. They're like, get one with some spots on it. One that's like been around for a while, has seen some things, right? And I think if we're looking for guidance, you don't want to go to someone who's never done something before and then ask them for advice, right? You kind of want to talk to someone who's been through it. And when it gets to the point where they're like past the point where you're going to eat it fresh, you can bake with it. You can incorporate it into something new. You can put it with new ingredients and introduce it to new ingredients and then create something that's like tasty and delicious and in a completely different form. This also makes me think about going between careers, like how this ties it back into the themes that were coming up here around like abundance and creativity and figuring out how to be creative about how you make money and things like that. Maybe you take your old skills, right? You're like old spotty banana. You take all of the skills that you've really harnessed in other roles, and then you bring them to something new. And that's your magic. That's the magic ingredient. Like if you had all the other ingredients and not the bananas, it wouldn't be a banana muffin, right? Even if there's like a ton of people out there, like there's tons of muffin recipes out there, right? There's tons of different things that you could do or tons of different options or different people doing the same thing as you. It's you that adds like this particular ingredient that makes it what it is. And I always think about like when you're eating a banana muffin, you can tell the difference in like the flavor from one that just looks kind of like a regular muffin mostly, and then the one that has those like little black flecks in it where it's like, that's like a good solid ripe banana that was used, right? So I just wanted to kind of share this to also show how like I just set these intentions with the new moon, and already it was only a couple days later, actually the day after, because this was on Thursday last week. And I was already receiving this message of like, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to work with. And so I listened and I already have started to like work with bananas, but I just thought this would be something that maybe you could try as well and see what it brings to you when you tune into the energy of bananas. So I am looking forward to hearing how this resonates with you. I have the 2023 tarot sessions available. So if you want a yearly forecast for 2023, you can do an email reading. We can do a Zoom if you'd like, or I can do audio, but I'll send you an email that has an image of each card and the description of what that means for you for that month. And then an overview of just like what the energy is for the year. And then you'll have that to look back at throughout the rest of 2023. If you subscribe to my newsletter, you've seen my format. It's just a physical, like visible reminder that you can come back to and look at throughout the season. And so having that for the year is just like a bonus where you'll be able to be like, why am I feeling this way this month? Or like, why does this keep coming up? And then you can look back and be like, oh yeah, that's what that is. I've been doing that myself with the one I did for me last year. And then this Thursday, the same day that our holiday episode comes out, is also the Sagittarius season remote recharge. And that one is free again. I decided to keep going from Scorpio season. Since we're on the other side of eclipse season now, I figured we all could use a little bit of healing and maybe some more guidance. So that one is free. You can find the link in the show notes or on my Instagram bio. And something extra exciting that I came up with and has already been popular since I shared it is that I'm doing a 2023 bundle for all of the remote recharge sessions for 2023. So if you've been around for a while, they're usually $22 Canadian, which is still really reasonable since you get like the whole breakdown of the session, you get the actual energy, and then you also get the messages that come through. And I decided that for a limited time until the end of the year, I will offer all of those sessions for $111 Canadian, which is a steal, but it's kind of my version of the Black Friday, Cyber Monday energy that's been going around, and it's something that benefits you. And I know that for me, if I didn't plan these ahead of time, I don't know when I would do healing sessions for myself. I do them sporadically here and there, but they're not as focused as these. And I just figured for those of you who maybe forget to sign up or just don't take the time for yourselves, this is an opportunity that's flexible as well. If you can't make it at that time, at least you can tune into the energy later and then take your time taking your notes, come back to the email whenever you'd like. And it's just a way to make the process work for you. If you're really busy or you have to choose an off time when like the kids are in bed, at least it's a way that is accessible. And so I figured having yourself commit to that ahead of time would be kind of a bonus for you because then you don't have to remember each month. I'll be sending an email the day before each session as a little reminder as well, just so that if you have forgotten about it and gotten busy again, you'll have it on your radar to look out for it to come into your inbox. So I hope you're all having a wonderful week, and I guess you'll hear from me again Thursday on mine and Emily's holiday episode, and I'm really excited for you to hear it.
Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Spirit Crumbs. You can find me on Instagram for this podcast at Spirit Crumbs, or you can also find me at Concrete and Crystals for my own spiritual offerings and more tidbits about my own journey. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.